question for you. Because you are the NFL guy, right? When between the two of us, you've had lots more time on the field than I have. So I would say substantially more time, certainly in the pros, than I have, unless you include the 5 minutes that I was on the field during Jets training camp in the summer. That may qualify. I'm not sure that it does. Oh, sure. But what is going on with all of the trades? I mean, is this an abnormal number of trade talk to hear, certainly at this point in the season?
I think so, Mark, and I think it is because the NFL has become so daggone competitive. We know about free agency. We know about the draft. That's all been there. And obviously this kind of activity too. But I think we're seeing more moves than we've seen in the past, for sure. And I look over at Detroit, for instance. They got Aiden Hutchinson. He just broke his leg, one of the ugliest breaks that I've seen in a really long time. And prayers out for him for a great recovery because he's a great young man. Shoot, I had to play against his parents back in the day. So, it gives you a little idea how old I am. But Hassan Reddick is one of these guys where he might go there. He's with the New York Jets, sort of, Mark, but he wants a new contract, and they don't want to give him one, apparently. And so because of that, this has gone back and forth, and we know the Jets are willing to do a few things too because, well, by the way, they went out and got Devontae Adams. I wonder why they did that. Let me think for a second. He was in Green Bay. The quarterback was in Green Bay. That might have a little something to do with it, huh? I would say that he has Aaron Rodgers has a lot of influence on the team, whether he wants to admit it or not. Yeah. The coach and some of the players, and in free agency last year when they picked up some of the players from Green Bay, former receivers, all of that. He's almost like the GM at this point, playing quarterback. So there's a lot to be said about that. Then you got Amari Cooper. They needed a receiver up in Buffalo. They were having some struggles. They're winning games, but not doing it the way Buffalo wants to do it. So they went out and they get Amari Cooper from the Browns. So there's a lot of movement of bigger names. We probably not going to see a whole lot more, but I think it's pretty interesting that people are kind of shifting around right now, Mark. And the one thing that I just wonder really deep down is the Cleveland Browns, who I like. I know the coach pretty well, Stefanski, but I'll tell you something. They've got a quarterback issue, and I don't know. That's going to be something, a noose around their neck for a while. And I say that only because they're paying him a lot of money. He's not really giving them anything at all, and that is lock, stock, and barrel guaranteed money for a long time still from here. And, that's what happens with some of these quarterbacks. Look at Jacksonville. That they're another one. Trevor's not really doing what he was expected to do. He's got $250 million. So they need these quarterbacks to start performing at a different level, and they're not getting it right now, and that's going to be a problem. You might see a lot more trades and a lot of quarterback trades, whether it's during the season, probably not. But in the offseason, you might start seeing guys starting to want to offload some of these contracts to some of the other teams. But next up, how about the ownership side, Mark? This is something you and I and John could talk about. A few years ago, somebody tapped me on the shoulder when I was in New York and said, look, I know who you are. I think you're going to be interested. You want to go to this meeting. And it was somebody I knew. And he goes, this is a meeting you might like. Well, fast forward to now, it was about the Raiders and what they were looking to do. And they had a little bit of room. Now, the problem was they were still in the Bay Area back then. And you had guys like Zuckerberg and all the guys with real money who really were very interested in possibly being in ownership in the NFL. Well, Tom Brady jumped over all of them. And Tom Brady now has 5% of the Las Vegas Raiders in a big move because he can afford just about anything he wants to do. So he's got 5%. Richard Seymour, his old teammate, defensive end, who was very, very good. He's in the Hall of Fame. He's just an unbelievable football player. He got 0.5%. Now, this is a group that's worth $6.7 billion, Mark. So they had to pony up big money regardless of whatever that percentage is. But it's something that Goodell is really pushing for, which is, hey, look, I love this. Let's get more players, retired players, to get involved with these teams if it's possible, and let's start getting that way. And I think that's part of what they're trying to give these guys the opportunity is, hey, look, if you had success and that kind of success, we'd love to have you as ownership in this because you know a lot about the sport.
Well, I got a question for you, though, Pete. And look, it's a remarkable story in terms of what these franchise values are. I love Goodell's idea in terms of getting some of these former players and pros that are brand names themselves involved. It helps fandom, it helps viewership, it helps eyeballs, which of course is at the end of the day the name of the game. But is there a concern about a conflict of interest with Brady as somebody covering these games from the broadcast perspective, right? As a journalist, as a sports journalist covering NFL, is he going to be in some way, shape, or form influenced in terms of his reporting on the Raiders and their prospects?
Yeah.
Because of this ownership stake? And is that something that Goodell or anybody's even considered?
Oh, 100% consideration. Yes, they are considering that. And let's be honest, there's only so many guys out there that have the ability to even invest in these. And right. While they're doing that, I guess going through the process, and when you look at the 5%, it's a big number, but it's still just 5%. So I think that could they think that Brady is going to be, swayed one way or the other because of the fact that he's got this investment? I think most of these players are good enough businessmen outside of being great football players that I think that they can handle it, Mark. And I don't think that's going to be an issue. And I think that includes guys like Tom Brady, where, they're intelligent guys. They do a really great job of dissecting the game. They know the game. And I think that they can step back enough, I think anyway, and I think obviously Goodell must think the same way. They can step back enough to say, you know what, I got ownership over here, but I still have to do my job, which is being fairly neutral. And I think, quite honestly, they might even be more critical. So on their own, teams and so forth when things aren't going well. So it could be pretty interesting, but that was a consideration for sure. And a lot of people talked about it. The other thing is, if Tom Brady owns these guys, 5% of them, he cannot come back and play. So there was always that, they were drifting that out there. Hey, Tom Brady's going to come back. He's going to come back. Guys, I don't think he's coming back. I didn't think he was coming back. He could, but I think he's very happy now, walked away and doing what he's doing and doing the announcing as a color guy.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. And Pete, I think it's less about covering live action, right? A hit is a hit, a win is a win, things of that nature. I think it's more about, in terms of prognostication, what their chances are, where he thinks they'll wind up, mid-season, end of season, the playoffs, how that might impact, how Vegas and the betting world, thinks about these teams' prospects. So it's more whether or not it impacts the forward-looking view of Brady with this ownership stake. But it's an interesting development. Look, net, I think it's good for the league, and we're only going to see these franchise values continue to go up. And Pete, it's that time of the Rebel's Edge when, if I'm on, got to do my job as the CEO of the company. Sorry, folks. Good. But we had to, of course, for everyone's safety, the safety of our staff and our attendees and ticket holders, to postpone our Rebel Mastermind event. It was supposed to be this past Friday, the 11th of October. We are now hosting it on the 19th of November, same location, Aventura, Florida, same setup. It is after the two-day the two-day 10X Wealth event that we're doing with Grant Cardone and his team on the 17th and 18th. We've been able to move almost all of our ticket holders over from the October date to the November date. Those that could not attend on the 19th because of pre-existing commitments have decided to opt to come to our Las Vegas event. And if you were on our cocktail hour on this past Friday, and if you're not, I feel really sorry for you, because we dropped a lot of unbelievable knowledge and some trades for this week that have already worked out pretty positively. But we are going to be hosting, Pete, our next RebelCon event, large-scale event in Las Vegas, Nevada at the MGM Grand on the 22nd of March. That's going to follow the two-day 10X Growth Con 10-year anniversary. We're expecting 8,000 people in the MGM Grand Arena. You'll be on stage with Grant. John will be on stage with Grant. I'll be on stage with Grant, along with an absolute A-list roster. And when I say A-list, folks, it is the top of the A-list of entertainment, music, politics, and business. So very excited. There'll be more coming out about that. That's our RebelCon event on the 22nd of March. And reminding everybody, we still have tickets available for our November 17 Rebel Mastermind in Aventura, Florida. And of course, you will see the tile with the QR code, the phone number there up on the screen. Please dial the number, click that QR code, check it out, grab your tickets while you still can. And Pete and John, I believe, because I think John will be not flying tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on another Rebel's Edge. Folks, thanks for watching. Pete, it's always a pleasure to be on with you, my friend.
Great to be with you, man. Take care.